Welcome to Evolve with the Modern Caveman.
Welcome back to the show. Welcome to Evolve with the Modern Caveman. I'm your host, Gilbert Diaz, aka the Modern Caveman. And as always, we have a great show prepared for you today. Today, I would like to talk to you about a topic that is very, very dear to my heart. It is a topic that literally changed my life for the better, and it is something that I truly believe can help change your life as well. It has become the source of the majority of my teachings, and outside of Jesus, it is the center of how I conduct my life today. If anything, I would say the two go hand in hand. You see, all my life, I had this feeling like my life was outside of my control. No matter how hard I tried to get a grip on it, my life felt like sand slipping through my fingers. I felt like I was a puppet, and life was my puppeteer. And I was putting on a show to meet everybody else's expectations. Because of this lack of control that I had over my life, I was not satisfied with the results that I was yielding, even when those results were good. I had trouble accepting the consequences of the results that I yielded, bad or good. If the consequences were bad, I had trouble accepting fault because I felt like someone else was manipulating the strings of my life. And if the results were good, I had trouble taking pride in it because I didn't believe that I was the one that was deserving of the credit. This constant need to satisfy other people's expectations eventually led me down a very dangerous path. And as you know from previous episodes, it nearly took my life in perhaps more ways than one. When I started my journey into personal development, the number one thing that I saw after was trying to find a way to diminish the feeling of lack of control in my life and finally possess the ability to control and determine outcomes of my decisions. Let me emphasize that many of the people who held the strings to my life were often very well meaning, good people, many of whom only sought the very best for me. Unfortunately, as in most cases, it is the well meaning, well intentioned, and loving individuals who may be holding us back from achieving the best that we possibly can be. This may be your parents, it could be a spouse, it could be friends, it could be in laws, it can even be your church family. Most of these people do not want to see you fail, they want to see you succeed. However, unknowingly, many of them only want to see you succeed within the parameters that they set. This is because life outside of these parameters is unknown and unfamiliar to them. And what is unknown and unfamiliar is also very uncomfortable to them. This is why it can offend them when we decide to take a different path or a different road in life. If you are listening to this right now and you are experiencing something similar in your life, please understand that most of these people act out of love and are not out to harm you. However, if you want to live a true, authentic, and fulfilled life, we must first accept that your life is your own. You must cut the strings of the puppeteers and reclaim your life as your own. Your life belongs to you and you only. It is okay to take advice and suggestions from people from time to time, especially if they've walked in your shoes and accomplished what you seek to accomplish. There is nothing wrong with that. But it is you who must make that choice. It is you that must accept the consequences that come with that decision as your own. I didn't even realize that this was a real struggle in my life. I had become blinded to the lack of assertiveness that I had. And because of this, It was easy for me to view myself as a victim and live my life as if I were a victim. I allowed anything and everything to affect me emotionally, even things that were outside of my control. One of the most difficult things for me to digest was the insurmountable evil that was often broadcasted on the news networks, specifically against children. You see, it sickened me to know that someone could be so evil as to harm something so innocent. Things like this kept me up at night. It made me sick to my stomach, and it made me lose hope in humanity and even in life itself. I questioned God. I questioned why bad things had to happen to good people. I had trouble accepting traumatic events, and I began to take the burdens of other people's problems on my shoulders. Because of this, I started to believe the notion that life was out to get me, and that life had already picked and chosen who would win and who would lose, and that I was on the losing end, unfortunately, of that stick. When things didn't go my way, it was life's fault. And when things did go my way or came out better than I expected, I believed that it wouldn't last because life must have made a mistake and it needed to be corrected. This was my mindset for much of my youth and much of my young adult years. I remember watching successful people either online or on television and thinking to myself that they were just part of the very lucky few, life's chosen ones. It didn't matter if they were bad or good, they were predestined for greatness. And I unfortunately was not. I envied them. I envied their success. I envied their happiness, believing that I was entitled to neither of them. And as a result, I became more fearful of taking action. I was more fearful of taking risk and more doubtful of my own abilities. I developed a low sense of self-worth, believing that it didn't matter what I did or who I was, the results will always be the same with me at the bottom. I had no confidence, and I was envious and angry. I suffered from a great deal of anxiety in my life because I feared that life was going to take away the good things that it had granted me. I truly believed, without a doubt, that life was out to get me. Then one day, a random thought bursted into my mind, and this happened after I made the decision that I would change my life for good. If I truly believed, this was the thought that I had, if I truly believed that God is good and that He has a will and a plan for my life, then there must be more to this life than I can see. I made the decision right then and there to figure out exactly what that meant. So so that I can experience the life that I was intended to experience, God the way that God intended me to experience, so that I can change my life for the better. Now, I've heard the term before, if you want to succeed in life, you have to take responsibility for your life. It was not a term that I was unfamiliar with, but it was a term that I had trouble understanding. Now, what do you mean that I have to take responsibility for my life? Am I supposed to take responsibility for everything that occurred in my life, even if it wasn't my fault? That's when I really those were the questions that I asked myself. And that's when I really began to study what it means to take responsibility for my life. I remember listening to something from Tony Robbins once. He said, your life will begin to change when you begin to accept that life isn't happening to you, but happening for you. When we do this, we allow ourselves to open our eyes to the many opportunities in front of us. We begin to accept failure as a part of the process rather than the end of the process. And we regain our ability to choose our life and how we want to experience it. Now, I'm probably paraphrasing what he was saying, but something about his words unlocked something in my mind and in my heart that allowed me to understand responsibility in a whole new way. I studied the word a little bit, and I noticed that if you split the word in half, it spells response ability. If you obviously if you replace the I with an A, response ability. I pondered that for a little bit and I really began to study exactly what that meant. And this is what I learned. You see, most people in life react to life. Something happens and it triggers an emotional reaction. These reactions are triggered on the subconscious level, which means that most of the time we do so without even thinking. This is why we've already, this is because we've already attached meaning to the event, and that meaning leads us to the emotions that we expect to have. Here's an example. You're driving on the highway and someone cuts you off. If you're someone who deals with a little bit of road rage, the action of someone cutting you off may mean that that they are demeaning you or they're belittling you or they're trying to make you inferior to them. This meaning that you created is stored in the subconscious parts of your brain and it triggers a defensive emotional reaction, which may cause us to get angry or even flip them the bird in an effort to demonstrate our own superiority. Now, the question is, was the person cutting you off really putting that much thought into it? Most likely not. Half the time, cutting someone off while driving is just a act of just bad driving. But because we have already attached a meaning to that event, it triggers a negative emotional reaction. Because these emotional reactions are triggered on the subconscious level, this is why so many people like myself felt like life was happening to us rather than for us and was outside of the grasp of our control. If I wanted to change my life, I had to take control of the emotional reactions that I had and replace them with a response of my choosing. And that's where responsibility comes in. It is the process of granting you the ability to respond rather than react. Responding to life is being in control of the emotions that you want to feel when triggered by the event. To achieve this, we must change our perspective of the event by changing the meaning that we grant it. Before we do this, we must accept three very important things. Number one, we must accept that there are things that exist within and outside of our control. Number two, we must understand that responses are conscious choices, whereas reactions are subconscious choices. And number three, the meaning you give something will determine the emotional response that you will have. Now let's tackle each of these three things individually. First, accepting what we can control and what we cannot. This is this was a very important thing for me to accept. And once I did, it really helped me from a lot of the excuse me, a lot of the self-torment that I was inflicting upon myself. First, let's discuss the obvious, right? The things that we can control. This includes our actions, our responses, our behavior, our choices, our thoughts, our boundaries, our values, morals, and beliefs, our habits and routines, our efforts, our attitudes, our perspectives, the way we communicate with one another. And it even includes the environments that we put ourselves in. These are things that we can manipulate simply by making a choice to change them. You don't like your actions? Change them. You don't like your behavior? Change it. You don't like the amount of effort that you give? Change it. You don't like people impeding on your life? Set boundaries. The vast majority of our life exists within our control. And the only thing we have to do is simply choose. There is, however, a few things that live outside of our control that we may encounter in our life. And these are the things that make us feel like life is entirely outside of our control. These may include, and they're not limited to, other people's actions, including actions that stifle your control, such as abuse. This also includes natural events like natural disasters and death, the past or the passage of time, external circumstances like global events, political changes, economic conditions, or societal trends. This may also include genetic or unforeseen health issues that may occur in your life. We can't control accidents, coincidences, or unexpected events that may occur without our warning. Some of these things can be, however, heavily influenced or minimized, but they cannot be controlled. The real question is, how are we supposed to take responsibility for the parts of our life that are uncontrollable? And it's actually very simple. Though we cannot control these events from occurring, we can control how we choose to respond to them. We can control how we choose to feel about them when they do occur. We cannot control our past, but we can control our present. We can't control death or the passage of time, but we can control how we appreciate the time that we have. We couldn't control the actions of the people that harmed us, but we can control how we choose to feel about it as we move forward. Accepting these two things is the core of reclaiming your life. Number two, knowing the differences between your reactions and responses. You see, reactions are made at the subconscious level, and they are often defensive mechanisms designed to protect you from revisiting a perceived danger. These subconscious reactions are often the result of pain that was inflicted upon you at some point in your past. Your brain registers these events as a threat and activates a fight or flight response to keep you safe. This is why we react in similar manners to different events that may end with the same outcome. Our brain recognizes it and immediately triggers an emotional response. While this is designed to help you, oftentimes it can prevent us from seeing life clearly because it has trapped us in kind of a false reality. Responses, however, are conscious, intellectual choices. They require self awareness to assess what parts of our reality have become clouded or jaded by past events. This only happens by revisiting the pain that initially wounded you and properly healing it. This is what most therapists and psychologists do in their practice. Healing healing comes in different ways, however. Some require forgiveness, others require acceptance, and some may even require grief. When we properly heal those areas of our life, we then grant ourselves the ability to change our perceptions. Your perceptions are the lens through which you view reality based on the experiences you have with certain events. It's not reality, but a warped perspective of what reality is. We base our judgments based on these perceptions, and they can alter our beliefs. For instance, a woman who has been raped when she was young may view men through the perception of danger. She may believe that all men are dangerous, and her subconscious reaction to them may be to keep them at arm's length. And so she'll constantly keep them away. Now, in her subconscious mind, she may view men as always being dangerous. This is not reality. Not all men are dangerous, but to her it is as real as it comes. And until she is able to heal that part of her life, she will always see men the same way. Now, when she does heal that part of her, she now opens her life to respond with emotions that are closer to reality, opening her life up to more possibilities. Number three, The meaning you give something will determine the response that you will have. Have you ever met someone who is in a constant negative mindset? When they fail, they quit, or they complain about their lack of resources or opportunities. These people have already preconditioned their minds to determine that failure means loss, or their lack of means less. Someone else, however, could be given the same kind of conditions and find opportunity and growth within failure and become resourceful and create opportunities. The meaning we apply to events will greatly alter our perspective. If we want to change our life, we must change the meanings that we apply. I love the story of the two boys in the barn. See, one day a father tells his two sons that he has a gift for them. He tells them that their gift is in the barn. When they enter the barn, they notice the harsh smell of manure. Their father closes the door behind them and locks them in for several hours. When he reopens the barn several hours later, he sees that one child is angry and the other child is happy. He asks the angry child, "Why are you angry with my gift?" The child responds, "You locked me in a barn filled with manure. What am I supposed to do with all this manure?" He then turns to the excited child and he asks, "Why are you so excited?" The child responds, "Well, with all this manure everywhere, that must mean that there's a pony around." Same conditions, two different perspectives. One was blinded by his conditions, while the other found opportunity in it. By changing the meanings we give, we change our perspective. And when we change our perspective, we can replace our reactions with appropriate responses that we choose to have. Remember, taking responsibility for your life is about regaining control of your life by granting you the ability to respond, not react. I hope you found value in today's episode. If so, please share this episode with a friend, a family member, or anybody that you feel would greatly benefit from these discussions. Remember to follow me on Instagram and on TikTok at Modern Caveman's Club. And remember to click the notification icon on all your socials that you follow me on so that you can be alerted anytime we post new content. Like, comment, and share your thoughts with me. And as always, keep evolving the modern caveman way.